A little better than that would indicate, but definitely a tough game against a very good Minneapolis team tonight. We'll get started in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. We'll be right back with you.
Into this streaming thing about a quarter of the game of the season and one game or two. I can make it to a game. It makes you focus more on the game and less about, especially your own kid. Did your organization split them up? Oh, it just turned out that this
Yeah.
one was he lost a guy right off the bat who went and played JV for his.
Oh, really?
Signed up for the organization and then bailed on it.
So yeah, that other team's got great players. They just never want to be.
Couldn't be cohesive.
You guys are even too.
We're totally even now.
All right, hey, welcome here. We are about to get started. Kanan, Brown, and Homstall on the draw. Kanan wins. That is Nicollet out working it through. So we got Nicollet and Prentice, your defenders. Kanan, Brown, and Homstall, your forwards. And Buell in net. Mr. Buell, none other than coming off a little bit of a ski injury here and looks to be moving just fine. So glad to have him healthy back in net. And a centering shot fires high and up and over the top. And a cover early. A rifled shot fires up and over onto the glass, and then a rebound attempt stopped by the blocker for Buell. So a negatively exciting first 30 seconds here as Minneapolis attacks. Hasselfelt, LaRose, and Clavin are back. Minneapolis, however, holds the zone. working their way around. Has it out front to the D. They dump it back into the corner. Wilson battling in the corner along with Hasselfeld as Jeffers chips it out to LaRose. LaRose flips that forward. That gets waved off from icing as Clavin works his way back, has it out front. Puck centered, but cleaned up nicely by the Minneapolis defender, and a breakout attempt coming here. LaRose then turns and dumps that back in, and he's going to get a quick change as Altschul comes in. Nicollet back in defensively. Altschul plays it up at center ice, tries to bank it up, giving Clavin a little time to get back on sides here. And Nicollet turns one over at the blue line, but Minneapolis chips it in. Wilson plays it, but turns that back over. Minneapolis controls, has the puck in the corner. Wilson does clean that up, however, gets bodied off the puck. Mead and Kurth, along with Altschul, join at the forwards. Kurth looking forward up the edge, tries to flip it forward to Mead. That gets picked off out front to Minneapolis. Wilson bodies that forward off the puck. The centering pass gets played out front. Minneapolis will regroup here at neutral ice. Mead then grabs it, chucks that back in, and I think an offsides there. Yeah, maybe as Mead tried to punch that in, Kurth was just offsides. So we'll restart here, 0-0 with Kanan, flanked by Brown and Homstall. Nicollet and Prentice are your defenders back. This one is controlled by Minneapolis, dropped into zone, punched back out by Prentice, and Homstall and Kanan on the puck. Turned around by Minneapolis at the edge, works their way in. That flies back around the boards as now Brown tries to hold up the edge, and he does chip that out. Brown with a little bit of pressure carries it through. Puck across, has Kanan. Kanan dangles his way in, tries to poke one through, flips in, and the puck comes off the stanchion as Kanan had a couple little shots. Turns around, tries to flip one backhanded, and then had another one. I think the net was off there temporarily. So Kanan, Brown, Homstall will stay in. I think we got fresh defenders in Jeffers and Wilson out in front of Buell. Minneapolis controls, but held in their own zone here. Kanan tries to work his way out as he gets it back on his stick over to Homstall. Homstall working his way around, trying to find a little daylight, and that shuts down. Minneapolis in the all-black uniforms here today shut this down, and a defender that actually just kind of unluckily banked off a defender there for Minneapolis. Hard ice pass across, looking for Homstall, picked off by the Minneapolis skater. That gets skated in deep. Centering pass, look for a deflection. Nothing doing there as Homstall rips it across. Brown has it out front, and that gets flipped back into zone here, back into neutral ice, as Minneapolis breaks up with it. Jeffers then comes in, shuts that down with a good stick on it. That goes through a couple skaters, and nothing doing there as hard charging Clavin comes in. A pile of skaters there as Clavin goes down. LaRose comes in with it. Nicollet handles it out front, dumps it back in. Minneapolis on that puck. That gets defended, and that will end up iced. And so that'll come back. Good skate there so far. Just inside 11 minutes in a 0-0 game so far. Hasselfeld, Clavin, and LaRose are your forwards here. Nicollet and Prentice back. LaRose turns, fires, and he flips one in, and a bouncing puck. Nice save there by Minneapolis. Kind of an awkward one as that flipped up, bounced in, and ended up kind of right in the pocket there of the Minneapolis goalie. 10:47 left in the first, 0-0. Hasselfeld gets pushed off the puck. Minneapolis controls back behind their own skates, or net, Clavin working his way in. Puck gets dumped in, and LaRose will chase. That gets waved off as Prentice let it skate by, and so they're going to wave that one off, looking for Nicollet on the far side. Nicollet will regroup, trying to find Kurth. That gets played in. Tried to be deflected by Minneapolis. Now Ulchel is going to try to chip it around, kind of chipping it back and forth as Kurth now plays it in the corner. Minneapolis breaks free with it. Puck bouncing up front. Gets chipped out of the way. There's a couple of scoring chances for Minneapolis as Ulchel goes down in the corner. Prentice on it. Prentice chips it forward. Minneapolis holds at the blue line. Now Nicollet to Kurth. And that does scoot through as Hasselfeld breaks on it. Minneapolis regroups and dumps it back in again. Boys need a break out here, something fierce. As Nicollet chops that out. Meade picks that up at the blue line. He skates that through. Stick gets poked away as Meade regroups and finds his way to it again. Played out the back of his stick by Jeffers. And Jeffers turns one over to the Minneapolis forward, who puts a quick shot on goal, but saved by Buell. .9:16 left here in the first. Still 0-0. Jeffers and Wilson are out in front of Buell. Meade now chasing on a puck that gets poked back deep into Minneapolis territory. Meade does chase that down, and now in a battle out behind there with Ulchel. Puck out front has Kurth. Kurth gets taken off his skates, and Minneapolis skates through. As Wilson goes down hard, his stick ends up on the ice. He regroups and has another piece of it. Homstall then gets pinned up against the board as Meade now works his way through. Skates it through as Homstall comes in. Homstall skates, looking around the edge. Tries to find all the way around, wraps, turns, and fires, and that ends up back side of the net. Kanan now in. Wilson turns and dumps that in. Kanan dangling his way in, tries to get his hands free. Two skaters close and finds a way through that. Now Minneapolis breaks away. Nice poke check by Jeffers. Kanan gets a piece of it. Kanan through neutral ice, finding his way over, looking for Homstall on the far side. Minneapolis stick on the ice. Prentice chips one in. That ends up high up into the net. Good save by Minneapolis, as a screen shot did get deflected out front by Prentice. And actually, I don't know if the goalie got a piece of that or where that went flying up from, but that ends up not in the net, up in the net, or up in the netting behind, excuse me. Brown battles in the corner, works his way over to Homstall. Homstall turns, fires, and centering pass had Kanan there. Couldn't quite get a full stick on it. And Minneapolis regroups to try to exit out. Brown breaks on it. Minneapolis does finally skate free with it. Two skaters come in. Puck bouncing up top as Buell with the save. Pass does find its way out to Homstall. Tries to punch one back to Brown, and that gets pumped up into the air as Minneapolis regroups in their own zone and see if the forecheck can do anything here for the Trojans. It looks like Homstall has a piece of it, but that deflects right onto the stick of a Minneapolis skater. And again, Plinkoed back as Prentice chips one forward. LaRose chops one out past the red line. Minneapolis does skate it past the red line and bumps it back in as Prentice catches one with the hand and has Clavin. Clavin looking for Hasselfeld. Minneapolis pulls it into zone. Has a skater out front, and that gets chipped out nicely. Waved off as Minneapolis regroups back behind the red line. Centering pass ends up almost right in front of the net there as Minneapolis tried to get it out, but they do find their way out on the near side now coming up. Jeffers poke checks one away. Clavin bodies up, and a bouncing puck ends up in the slot. Minneapolis trying to get their hands free with it, and finally Hasselfeld skates free with it. Hasselfeld through neutral ice. Stick up high, kind of gets up into Hasselfeld as he struggles with it. Clavin turns. Shot over to Mead as that gets deflected up into the net. Great even skate. We're just inside 6 minutes here, and it is a back and forth affair. 0-0 as a fresh set of Trojans come in. Mead along with Kurth and Altschul, Jeffers and Wilson back. Safety first. We got a mouth guard on the ice. Mead wins one back. Jeffers dumps that in, looking for Altschul. Gets past him as Minneapolis tries to regroup. Jeffers pinches, and that does scoot through. Hustling by Wilson as he chips one back. Kurth in to help. Minneapolis retains control back behind the net as they work their way around. Altschul there to get it, and a slapper up high, a deflected puck up top, and a second shot goes wide right. Mead hustles his way through. Altschul chips it out. Mead down at the blue line. I didn't really see what happened there, but the Wayzata faithful were not happy about it. Getting a little rough, probably time to control a little bit. As that gets played up and off, and that does get on net as the Trojans roll out three fresh skaters. Brown breaks on it. Kanan there to pick it up. Leaves it back for Brown. Brown dumps it around the backside. Finds Kanan again. Kanan regroups. Works his way up. Has Nicollet. Nicollet with a slapper up. That gets deflected before it finds its way to the goalie. And that skates its way out, and that will be iced and come back as Prentice couldn't stride its way to that one. 4:30 left here in the first. 0-0 remains in a very competitive skate. Kanan on the draw, flanked by Homstall and Brown. Prentice and Nicollet out in front of Buell as Minneapolis looks to break it out. Brown shuts things down on that side temporarily as the Minneapolis skater works his way around. Temporarily to Nicollet. Brown calling for it. Gets hung up on his skates at the blue line. It does end up in the zone, but the boys kind of have to regroup here. Brown then does come back, poke check one away, and get back into it, but Minneapolis breaks free, and that will be iced back. So just 4 minutes remain here in the first, and we'll come back with an offensive zone draw and a fresh set of skaters as LaRose and Clavin will be on either side of Hasselfelt on this draw. Jeffers and Wilson, your defenders. Hasselfelt working his way to some short-term possession as Minneapolis breaks out and has a little bit of a 3-on-2 situation, but a good back check there by LaRose and a save by Buell. 3:46 left in the first, and another save for Oliver Buell, Mr. Buell, as you may know him. Minneapolis controls that. Puck fires in, and a good body pressure there by Clavin on the backside may have prevented the deflection or the quick chip in there off that face-off slapper from the outside. Jeffers now works his way out, looking for LaRose. LaRose skates it all the way across to Hasselfelt, finds Clavin. Clavin finds a little bit of space near side, flips one in, and that one looked to roll up the edge and couldn't quite get there. Wilson regroups and fires one. That ends up high up and over the goalie. Hasselfeld there battling again in the corner. That one finds its way out. Oh, and Hasselfeld couldn't quite get out of the way of that one from Jeffers. Jeffers pinches, and Clavin fires one deep. LaRose then rallies one back around again, and Minneapolis has a little more space here as LaRose is looking for help. Altschul comes in. Clavin in to help. A mass of bodies there as Altschul going to chip away and try to kick something out. Altschul does. Finds its way out to Jeffers. Jeffers flips one in, and that gets deflected by the Minneapolis forward. Minneapolis has numbers coming back. Nice cross ice pass. Looking for another pass back, as almost ends up being a give and go, and Buell shuts that progress down. A skater out front with room as the puck is loose out front. Several opportunities for Minneapolis shut down by the Trojans. I believe Kurth now on the edge, tries to flip one out, can't quite get to the blue line, and Buell will glove one and get a save. Just inside 2 minutes, 1:56 to be exact, in the first period here. And it's 0-0. Got caught in a change there, so Mead's line mates were out for a bit, but Hasselfeld couldn't get out, as now Mead has made his way in at center. Prentice is battling in the corner. Minneapolis controls, but Prentice bodies him off the puck nicely. Prentice finding a little bit of space, working his way through open ice nicely. Gets across the blue line. I didn't even hear a whistle. Did you hear a whistle? Oh. Everybody stopped. I assume there was one. Trojans offsides here. They flip that back in. The puck ends up back into zone. Minneapolis regroups. Kurth in pursuit. And a skate save there by Nicollet. Nicollet just does trickle out of the blue line, and Nicollet possesses deep into his own zone. Turns, and he's going to try to fire one in. That ends up into a body. I didn't see where that came down, but Mead found it and is regrouping back behind the net himself. Altschul comes in and controls. Mead now along with Altschul as Kurth is battling up front, and Prentice there almost hits a skate of Kurth on the way in, and the Trojans continue to control. That gets regrouped in, and a glove save. No, it doesn't. Minneapolis skates free with it. Couple of defenders there shut things down as Altschul over just can't quite get it on the stick of his line mates, and Minneapolis just offside. 32 seconds left, and what's been an exciting scoreless first. All right, Kanan along with Brown and Homstall are your forwards. Wilson and Jeffers remain on defense. Brown does turn and fire that one forward, looking for Kanan. It's just a little out of his reach as Minneapolis regroups, and the forecheck is on. A good skater here, as he skated through a couple different skaters as he toe drags his way through. Puck out front, that gets poked away as Homstall tries to scoot one across, looking for Brown, and everything is getting knocked down here for Homstall. Finally finds its way to Kanan. Kanan dangles his way into zone, but quickly picked up by the Minneapolis defender. And an exciting scoreless first, 0-0 through one. It's fun. It's a fun skate. It's a fun skate. Your kiddos play lacrosse?
Yeah.
What ages? So you obviously got
so he's going to go, he's an 8th grader. He'll play JV this year.
Okay.
And then my two younger ones haven't really picked anything up yet.
Okay.
They're 7 and 5. So
Okay, they got some time on
they got plenty of time.
Don't worry about that.
Cool. Did you just play lacrosse? Or?
Yeah, so I've got one out here that plays lacrosse. I got a senior in high school as well.
Nice. Lacrosse is super fun too.
Yeah, I would say that's probably our sport. This is kind of the other one for this guy.
It's rare, but yeah, that's the same.
And then my other
one's
one's
kind of the same for us.
The other one's football.
Sorry.
To my chagrin, football.
I didn't play hockey or lacrosse, and so I've just been along for the ride with them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's there are just starting to be parents that have playing experience in lacrosse. Otherwise, there's so many. These hockey coaches are amazing, right? The guys I have coaching youth football are amazing. I've been hiring young bodies to coach lacrosse.
We the same. I'm on the board, and it's miserable. For our 10U, we finally started just getting parents that don't know what they're doing out
That's
there.
what you need.
All right, start a second.
All right, Kanan on this first draw. A little bit of back and forth out front as Homstall punches that one through, and he'll chase on the forecheck down deep. Brown tries to knock one down. That ends up onto the stick of Minneapolis. A backhand by Wilson ends up on the stick back for Minneapolis as Jeffers tries to break three. Oh, I'm not sure Buell saw that one. It was a little loose sliding puck off to the edge of the goal line there. Jeffers. Oh, a puck slides wide there, and another one flips up and over the top. Boys need to get one out here, and they've got room as Wilson carries through the red line, tries to skate one through. Brown on the edge, plays it back to Jeffers. That ends up back into the corner. Got to bring you with me as Brown plays it to Hasselfeld, up to Wilson, into the skates here as Brown turns, and he fires a puck high. Gets deflected by Homstall, mostly just out of personal protection. As Kanan works his way across the blue line to hold off the onsides, finally ends up at neutral ice by Prentice, over to Nicollet. Nicollet on the far side, chipping in. Minneapolis has a lot of room in the center here as they do skate that through. As Hasselfeld does break through and pick that one up, skating his way in deep, trying to get his hands free. Flips one along the ice. That ends up a little bit wide. Prentice there chips it in along with LaRose. Prentice will try to hold again as Hasselfeld backs him up. Minneapolis will regroup up front. Ends up on the skates of Nicollet, and that was just offsides as LaRose was working his way back into position. So that'll actually come back to center ice here with Hasselfeld on this face-off. LaRose and Clavin on either side. Jeffers and Wilson on the backside. Wilson plays that off, but a centering pass right out front flips up, and the boys trying to get it out, and it does just exit the zone as Hasselfeld breaks on it. LaRose is there with him right in front of us, but Minneapolis pokes it through and has a little bit of room on that side. Another shot goes just wide as they're trying to slide one stick side on Buell along the ice, and they're just missing at this point. Heavy pressure there as Wilson gets a hit into the corner, and a bouncing puck comes back and controlled by Minneapolis as Jeffers then bodies into the corner. Jeffers turns and tries to fire one out to Wilson. Wilson looks to Clavin, and that will be an icing back as Minneapolis will get a zone draw deep. 11:53 left here in the second in a scoreless game. Fresh skaters in as Prentice and Nicollet are your defenders. Mead. Mead along with little scoring chance there for Minneapolis. Prentice plays it. Ulchel to Mead. Mead pokes that through. Minneapolis will regroup and win the race to it, but Mead applying pressure. Kurth breaks on it. Ends up into the stick as Mead tries to work his way, ends up stuck on the blue line, but Nicollet turns and he fires that one in. Nicollet finding a little bit of space, skates his way in and ended up kind of offsiding himself on a nice little poke check by the defender, slows that down and creates an offside situation. Mead, Kurth, and Ulchel skate off along with Prentice, and Nicollet. Fresh 5 in here with Wilson and Jeffers out in front of Buell as Kanan takes the straw, flanked by Brown and Homstall. Kanan punches that one forward. Homstall holds the blue line, controls it, looking for Kanan. Puck in the stick as Brown goes down deep, looking for a trip. Nothing there as Kanan turns and looking for a centering pass as Homstall gets it. Nothing there. Brown back checks, slows that down, but Minneapolis dumps it in. This will be played in deep. Centering pass out front. Minneapolis skates with it. Jeffers there as Brown plays it back to Jeffers. On to Homstall to Kanan. Kanan finds a little bit of room far side, looking for Brown behind him. Wasn't quite in sequence there as Minneapolis closed faster. And a couple of poke checks there keep things out of zone for Minneapolis. Patiently wait, though, however, and they do skate it into zone. And a hard driving forward on the far side has a shot and out. So just off sides here on the far side as Minneapolis creates the violation. 10-10 left in the second. We remain scoreless as we've got fresh skaters in. Hasselfeld, LaRose, and Clavin, as well as Prentice and and Nicollet out in front of Mr. Buell. Minneapolis controls, however, centering pass and deflection given up by Buell, and another one gets near the net and I think broken up by Prentice. As Prentice turns, fires, and Nicollet looking to exit has Clavin. Clavin's going to chip one around. Minneapolis first to it. Centering pass out front, misses. Deflected puck outside again as now LaRose has it near side and a little room on the left side. He comes in, centers, and that ends up back up against the boards as Clavin breaks on it. LaRose holds up against the boards as Clavin tries to chip it free. Nicollet trying to decide if he's going to pinch or not, does actually retreat as Minneapolis breaks through neutral ice and dumps one back behind the net, drawing a little contact from Clavin. Nicollet now controls and finds Clavin. Clavin tries to flip one out, and that gets deflected right to a defender out front. We're making a lot of passes to the other team right now, so we got to clean up some of those exit passes as Minneapolis is on the doorstep, and that is exited nicely by Clavin out to neutral ice. Kurth looking for Altschul as Hasselfeld on it. Altschul battling out here out front, looking for a forecheck all by himself, holding that zone as we're getting a center change as Hasselfeld was in for a long stretch there. That puck comes back to neutral ice as a fresh Mead is all over this forecheck. Altschul maintains pressure, and that gets chipped in by Minneapolis. Hard pass across, looking for Kurth, gets picked off by Minneapolis and punched into zone on the far side. As Kurth looks for a little contact, that gets flipped in, and that ends up over on the other side. Near side here, and a puck deflected off maybe a Trojan. Gets through, and now Mead blows a tire on the edge. Altschul picks him up and at least chips it to neutral ice as Altschul is getting a change. Fresh forwards coming in Homstall, in Brown. Minneapolis with a little bit of an advantage as they caught the Trojans in a change there. That puck ends up out front, and Brown skates free with it. Brown works his way through, tries to dangle one in, and a nice poke check there by the Minneapolis D, shuts that down. Homstall now back behind, and Brown in to help. Mead up front. Minneapolis controls, looking to work their way out. Has a nice little pass into the center here. Breaks it up. Brown, a bad poke check there. And the stick of the Minneapolis skater works his way through. And Buell with the great save. 6:54 as a nice little toe drag worked its way through the Wayzata defender there. And Buell shut the 5-hole down just in time as the charging Storm player put one on net. 6:54 left, and we remain scoreless. Jeffers back behind the net. Joined by Kanan. Jeffers tries to chip one out, looking for Brown. Brown tries to poke one through, can't quite get it out. Jeffers plays it up. Looking for Kanan. Now Brown in there battling with it, and Kanan skates free with it. Minneapolis chops that back in. Is that just off the backside here? But does find its way to Homstall. Homstall looking for Brown out front. Skates all the way around. Does get poked out to the blue line temporarily. Jeffers couldn't quite hold it, but Wilson on it. Wilson does flip one out and has Homstall. Homstall with room, working his way up. Bodied off that puck nicely by a hard-charging Minneapolis forward back on it. That ends up back just on sides as Brown gets a break. Fresh skaters coming in here as Homstall gets a break along with them. We've got a little out of sorts there with centers, and a centering pass out front is picked and held by Buell. 5:28 left and a scoreless game remains. Some tired defenders getting a rest here as Nicollet and Prentice come on in. Hasselfeld on this faceoff. We'll have LaRose as a puck slides along the edge just past the net as Minneapolis regroups. Prentice there with a poke check on it. And that gets out front. Hasselfeld looking for LaRose. LaRose trying to get it back to Hasselfeld as Clavin does carry it in, and Hasselfeld gets back on sides. They chip that out to Nicollet. Nicollet flips one in, and a deflected shot up front, and a beautiful save by Minneapolis, as I think Hasselfeld may have got a piece of that one. Just inside 5 minutes here in the second period. We remain scoreless. Clavin tries to regroup, tries to get it to his defender, and Minneapolis has space. They turn and find a breaking defender. LaRose gets a piece of that. Minneapolis will probably win in and see if we can cover that one up as Nicollet breaks to pinch on that one and nothing there. Kurth, however, on it, and that at least creates a settled situation with an offsides. 4:31 now. In comes Mead, Altschul, and Kurth. Minneapolis controls after temporary Minneapolis control. Jeffers and Wilson are out front. Jeffers buries that puck, looking for a little help. Does have Mead. Looking for Kurth. That gets exited right back to Minneapolis. We'll try the near side here from Jeffers to Wilson. Wilson looking for Altschul. That gets held at the blue line and dumped back in. Now Jeffers will have it again. Has it looking for Kurth. Kurth back to Jeffers. Over to Altschul. Altschul does chop that out to neutral ice. It does end up back in temporarily as Wilson pops that back in, and Minneapolis will chase into the corner. Kurth on it as Wilson turns on that one, and he's going to win that race back out to neutral ice, but Minneapolis carries it in, and they're offsides. Might have been shielded. All right, Minneapolis was offsides there. They may have missed it as Mead now battles out front, pestering, but Minneapolis does turn that around. Slight numbers coming in as Altschul turns, and he fires one off, caromming out, looking for a little Mead pressure again as they enter. And Ulchel does break on that one nicely, and he chips that one in. So that'll be just enough time for Minneapolis to get a break. Brown comes in and creates a turnover deep in zone. He's got a little help from Kanan as Kanan tries to skate his way out, but Minneapolis works on it. Now Minneapolis has numbers out front as Nicollet shuts that down and has a rolling puck out front to Homstall. Good pressure there by the Minneapolis defender as Ulchel had a little leg on it, but that fluttering puck came to a weird rest deep into the zone, and now Minneapolis comes back again, and that didn't miss by much. Brown battles into the corner, pins his defender off, and Nicollet skates this through, taking it deep. Nope, that doesn't quite hop on to now Prentice works his way in. Brown getting a rest. Clavin in. Homstall pressures into the corner. Clavin in with him as Kanan is parked out front looking for a loose puck. Now he battles back behind the net himself, and Minneapolis tries to find their way out. Pinned up against the boards. Clavin will come in for a little bit of help. Homstall now on it, and the puck does scoot out along this left edge as a hard back check by Homstall. And Jeffers leans as the Minneapolis skater does scoot by the far edge. Does get pinned up behind the corner. Skates through about 3 or 4 Wayzata skaters and keeps it on his stick. Does find its way out to the defense, and that gets flipped in out front. Now Kanan centering pass out front, and a hard pass as Jeffers gets it. Now Kanan has it, and he's working his way up the far side. Tries to toe drag one in, ends up back to Clavin, and now Minneapolis has it with 49 seconds left. Up the far side, centering pass out front, and that goes wide left. Clavin looking for space. LaRose punches that through, and that skates through as Hasselfeld out hustles to at least slow that puck down and hold the zone here, and he works his way into the other corner as LaRose now gets involved. LaRose out front. Minneapolis chops that one forward, and that will be ice. Nope, that gets waved off as Kurth finds Ulchel. Kurth flips forward. And that is going to be the end of your second. We're going to have a Zamboni break here. And so we'll be back in about 10 or so. And we got an exciting third period, 0-0 so far. Not for lack of action.
This has been pretty intense, yeah.
I'm so tired. After go to sleep. Whoa.
get your picture? You want to say hi to Grandma or anybody? Here you go. Wow. There we go. Say hi, Annie.
I usually, most of the year I had a 10-year-old little sister join me. But I would get like
Oh, nice. That's perfect.
guinea pigs. It's got guinea pigs. That's cool.
Well, let's see what happens.
Yep. It'll be fun either way. All right, we are back. If you're just dialing in, it is not delinquents by our scorekeeper. It is 0-0 entering the third. So we got a fresh 15 minutes. And Kanan, Brown, and Homstall will start here. And Minneapolis controls the opening face-off. They take it in deep. Prentice and Nicollet are your forwards, and that gets chipped out as Kanan is in pursuit. Minneapolis has room and puts it on the stick of a charging forward here. Prentice on it, and Buell plays that off, and another centering pass up front and covered by Buell. 3-ish saves in that little sequence there, all into that pad, that leg pad of Buell, shutting down that near side. 14-28, just 32 seconds into this one, and a fresh set of skaters coming in as Wilson and Jeffers be in front of Buell. LaRose, Clavin, and Hasselfelt in. A deflected puck out front. Another save for Buell as Clavin skating his way out with it right in front of us. Does just push that one into zone himself. Hasselfelt works his way in. He tries to dangle away in, ends up onto the stick of a Minneapolis skater. Gets across the blue line. Does dump it in, and that gets chopped up in. And Ellickson with a save from the, oh no, maybe he didn't save it. That got by him on the bench there. Hasselfelt wins, controls to Wilson, ends up to Jeffers, and then ends up off, I think, a pad or something as Minneapolis holds the zone out front here. Wilson chops one in. Minneapolis charges on the far side, and that slides by the back of the net. It ends up out of neutral ice, and Clavin does skate in, looking for a little bit of action here as Meade comes in as the Minneapolis skater goes down. A little room on the far side as Altschul now, along with Meade and Kurth, are your forwards. Prentice and Jeffers remain. Little scrum on the near boards there. Minneapolis does come free with it. Ends up back to the defender and out to neutral ice as Kurth puts a little bit of forecheck pressure on. Meade does skate free with it into the corner. Pops that forward, but Minneapolis all over it. Disciplined D deep in their zone as they don't let anything easy come through. And they've done a nice job of exiting their zone out front. And a deflected puck and a save for Buell there. That goes up high over the top. Kurth tries to, heads up. Kurth flips one up, and that ends up into the glass. Amanda, I think the curse is gone. It wasn't even close to you. Yeah. Kanan back in along with Brown and Homstall. Jeffers battles on the far side along with Wilson. Little stick lift there as Homstall has it, but Minneapolis controls as Jeffers tries to flip one high to Brown. Brown chips one forward to Kanan. Kanan has a little room, puts it on the tape of Homstall, but immediately exited back as Minneapolis holds the blue line, skates it in deep, and a deflected puck out front Minneapolis turns, and they fire again, and a bouncing puck off the leg pad there of Buell. And that gets out front. Kanan with a little room up the far side. He comes in, scoots one in, and a 5-hole save there. As, Nicollet comes firing in to hold that at the blue line. Pressure exists deep. Centering pass out front, looking for Kanan, and Minneapolis breaks that up and scoots free with it. Minneapolis has a little room out front as Nicollet works his way into the corner, turns that puck over, and has a little room to skate out. Has Homstall as Brown regroups. Now looking back to Homstall. Homstall chips that in, and he'll get a change as Clavin comes in. Nicollet out front. Puck out front. Matt scoots by as Hasselfeld had a shot at it out front, and the puck ends up high and over the net. More pressure here deep into zone as Clavin works his way out. Ends up to Prentice. Prentice with a little bit of space. That ends up, puck scoots out, and that will be ice, so we'll keep you here. And a good ice there by Minneapolis as there was pressure mounting around the goal line, and a good series of pressure there for LaRose, Hasselfeld, and Clavin, along with Jeffers and Wilson out front here. Puck gets controlled. Jeffers regroups. That gets flipped in, and a save for Minneapolis. Hasselfeld there on it. Now Clavin turns, and he looks for Jeffers out front. Jeffers chops that in. Minneapolis holds that up, and they've got numbers 3-on-1 coming back. Holding on sides does just allow a little bit of forecheck to get back on it as Clavin chips one out. Can't quite get it out of zone as Minneapolis regroups along the blue line. Jeffers controls, flips it for Clavin. Minneapolis right back into zone. That gets fired in, and Buell with the glove save. 9:42 left, and fresh Trojans coming in. Mead, Altschul, and Kurth will be your forwards. Prentice and Nicollet defending in front of Buell. Buell in net for the Trojans. Trojans control. Mead gets it back on his own stick. Tries to punch one through. That gets flipped out and offsides here on Minneapolis. That got just over the blue line, off a pad and back into zone, and they turn that one back in. And so we'll get a fresh neutral zone face-off here. Mead wins that one. Back to Nicollet. Finds its way to Mead. Mead carries it deep, gets chipped out, and finally punched back in as Nicollet will carry it into the corner. Sorry, not Nicollet will have it now. Nope, that's Mead. Mead tries to skate free with it. As that gets forward on the stick and flipped in deep. Kurth chases it with Altschul, and that scoots by, and that'll be iced. 8:49, and a wild pace to a scoreless game with just 8:49 left. Kane and Brown and Homstall are your forwards here. Wilson and Jeffers back on D. Homstall gets it. Kanan tries to skate his way through some traffic. Minneapolis controls. Brown on it. Right in front of us, and Minneapolis does finally skate free with it as Jeffers puts it on the stick of Kanan to Homstall. Homstall back to Kanan. That fires in, deflected and saved by Minneapolis. A nice little leave there from Homstall to Kanan, and a blocker save ends up in the net. Great goalie play here, both sides of the rink Ends up out top. Jeffers flips one in. That is a bouncing puck. Does give up a rebound there, and Homstall charged at it, and it got just covered in time. 8:17 in a scoreless third and final period. Minneapolis controls, looking for a breakout. Brown picks it off but gives it back, and Minneapolis skates free with it. Kind of split the defenders here as Buell poke checks that one away. Fast skater got away from us there as now Kanan comes across. He can't quite play that one himself, but he does control on the boards temporarily. Ends up back to Nicollet. Nicollet plays it to Homstall. Homstall does skate that in himself. He'll carry it deep. Centering pass played by the Minneapolis defender. Back to Kanan. Kanan turns, holds it on his stick. Can't quite keep it there. Regroups. And Trojans get back on sides. D pass to Prentice. He fanned on one to Homstall. A pink plinko of skates and sticks there, and Minneapolis regains control. A couple of stick lifts by the Trojans, and finally Nicollet skates in the zone with it. Finds a little room on the near side, turns and fires, and a glove save by Minneapolis. We are scoreless in the back half of the third now. Fresh skaters coming in as Homstall, LaRose, not Homstall, Hasselfeld, LaRose, and Clavin are in. Wilson holding the blue line as the Storm were looking to break it out. Clavin slows that down with some body pressure, and Wilson lets one scoot through. Minneapolis finds their way deep and turned over by Hasselfeld, but Minneapolis controls as Jeffers controls on this side. Clavin finds Wilson. Wilson takes it wide. He gets played off of his stick, and that ends up in the side of the net by Hasselfeld. Jeffers stops and breaks on that one, and Wilson on it. 6 minutes left as the Trojans look for Clavin. Clavin finds Ulchel. Ulchel with room, tries to scoot one through. Shut down by the poke check there of Minneapolis. That ends up high, and that gets flipped out, and that'll be iced back, and a fresh set of skaters coming in for the Storm. We got Mead, Kurth, and Ulchel in. Prentice and Nicollet holding the blue line. Nicollet does hold that blue line. Backhands one back out, and off the skates. Creates a little rush here by Minneapolis. They hold that zone, and that gets flipped off by Buell as Minneapolis regroups here into the corner. Pressured by Prentice. Kurth tries to pull it out. Has another shot at it here. Pinned in deep. Minneapolis comes free with it. Onto the stick of Minneapolis as Ulchel gets snagged up deep. Nicollet to Prentice to Kurth. Back to Prentice. Kind of buried into the corner here. Nicollet will have it. He's going to work this side again, and that does find its way out of zone, and that'll get waved off as a hard charging Mead is going to carry this into the corner. Mead does create a turnover of his own, getting a shift change in here for the Trojans, but Minneapolis with room out front has Wilson. Wilson turns and fires. That gets stopped right at mid-ice by Minneapolis, and Wilson has it again. That gets played out by Mead as they get tangled up out front. And Brown with room. Brown gets pinned through a couple of skaters there. Minneapolis flips that one in, and that goes wide to the left. Homstall has Brown. Brown with a little room on the near side. Brown flips one in, and that ends up into the net. Save for Minneapolis, 3:59 in a scoreless third period. Fresh defenders coming in with Prentice and Nicollet. Kanan along with Brown and Homstall will be in. That puck goes off the side of the net for Prentice. Plays that back to Prentice again, and that gets flipped in, and a deflected puck saved by the Minneapolis goalie. He ends up in the glove. Kanan back on the dot. Brown breaks into the corner. Kanan in there to help. Tries to skate free with it. Minneapolis now has a little bit of space as Homstall goes down deep. Nicollet holds up the Minneapolis skater here deep as Kanan now has space. Homstall skates in. Brown on the corner. Back to Prentice. Prentice fires one in deep. Homstall looking for a little bit of space. Looking through the skates at Brown. Brown stick lifts and keeps it deep, and it centers back in as Brown breaks again. Now Nicollet on it, and Brown will retreat to help his way out. That gets caromed back inside, and we've got fresh skaters coming in as Prentice has Homstall. Homstall has a charging Clavin, and Clavin comes in. A pass or a shot in from Homstall. Rebound given up with 2:47 left as Sam Clavin breaks to the net and scores. I got to be honest, I think I missed that clip, so apologies Sam, apologies Clavin. That all happened so fast as we were working our way down, but the Trojans find a lead deep with 2:47 left. Homstall to Clavin, and it's 1-0 Trojans. 2:40 left here in the game as Clavin bodies up against the edge there. Jeffers chops one in. Nice little on sticks. And a save there deep as the Trojans close, but a skater got away from there down the middle out front, and that gets chipped up as Clavin does a nice job of holding that up. Trojans looking for a change. Minneapolis has numbers. That scoots by, and that'll be iced, and things can get sorted here. Just 2 minutes left. Kanan, Brown, and Homstall back in. Nicollet and Prentice are there. Brown was breaking away, hoping that would come clean to him, but now gets pinned into the corner. And now out front, Minneapolis controls. Centering pass up front. Stick lift by Brown as Brown plays that off, now into the corner. Minneapolis trying to find a way out. Kanan pokes one through, can't quite find its way through the Minneapolis defender. Brown goes down. Kanan puts it in. Prentice flips one down, and we'll get an ice here with 1:29 left. Regrouping here, Minneapolis pulled the goalie, so they'll have an extra skater with 1:29 left. And Minneapolis will take a timeout. He's been dynamite. He can't be hard. That was, I mean, he gave up a little rebound there and a charging
Too
kid
much of
off
a
the
rebound,
bench,
man.
What a... Oh, we have an exciting minute and 30 seconds left here as Minneapolis will have an offensive zone draw and an extra skater, 6 skaters with the goal empty. And my guess it'll be that way.
For mean?
Well, at
Unless
least
it comes out.
until there's a tie, or frankly, probably 2 empty netters, it would have to be, I think. So they'll keep charging here. So the Trojans are going to have to find a way to get the puck out of their own zone. What's that?
I could never do that.
Oh, this
Yeah, at this.
keeps me sad. I'll tell you something later, but Nicollet and Wilson will be your defenders here. Kanan, Brown, and Homstall are your forwards. Plays it out. Homstall has a piece of it as Kanan breaks free. Brown up the near side. And Brown flips it in for the empty netter. Brown from Kanan and Homstall as that worked its way through. Just 15 seconds in, and the Trojans score their second. Good little outlet pass. We got Homstall to Kanan to Brown. Is that right? Homstall to Kanan to Brown. All right, Brown with the goal from Kanan and Homstall. 1:15 left here. And I expect Minneapolis will work their way to another offensive zone draw here and pull the goalie again if they can. Clavin pokes that out. Minneapolis regroups, gets on sides, and the goalie is pulled again. Just 50 seconds left here as Minneapolis regroups. That ends up skating back into their zone as LaRose pressures. Minneapolis chases that down before it gets on goal. Hasselfeld breaks on it. Clavin then dumps that in. Just 30 seconds left. We're going to send both guys in. A little tussle on the near boards. He might have been just underneath me there. I didn't really see it, but Mead, Kurth, and Ulchel now in. Prentice and Nicollet are your defenders. That ends up back. Nicollet punches that forward. Just inside 30 seconds now as Minneapolis regroups. I would assume look to pull goalie again as another save by Buell. Goalie pulled. 5 skaters here for Minneapolis as Prentice tries to punch one around the edge, gets a little hung up. Kurth does a nice job of breaking on it. 14 seconds remain as the puck does find its way out. It gets dumped in deep by Minneapolis as Prentice bodies. Puck ends up in the air, and that's 4, 3, 2, and 1, and that is a regional final, a regional berth for the Trojans. A really, really good skate all around. A tough rebound by Minneapolis was the only goal before that empty netter a little bit late, and the Trojans stuck in there in what was a very competitive match. So the Trojans will see a Maple Grove team on Friday night in a championship game, and that is a berth. So first and second seeds onto regions, and so we'll see that coming up in a couple of weeks. So thanks for joining. We'll be back on Friday night for the district championship game. Hats off to a shutout by Mr. Buell. Greg, if you're watching, he was absolutely phenomenal tonight. Thanks for dialing in.